Hey there, and welcome back. And we just finished talking about selfishness, medicine, and alternative medicines, such as homeopathy, chiropractic, and naturopathy, and acupuncture, and all these other alternative medicines. I'll have Rachel.
Okay, so basically I was talking about this new procedure that an Italian doctor came up with called the liberation procedure, in Italian, of course. And it's a new treatment for MS. He is looking at MS as a functional deformity as opposed to an autoimmune disorder, which is what it has been believed to be up until this point. And it's been known that iron buildup in the brain is something common amongst multiple sclerosis patients. And this doctor said, why is there all this iron buildup? He found through ultrasounds that MS patients that he scanned had collapsed veins or blockages in their veins that hindered proper blood drainage from the brain. And when he did this procedure of putting a stent or balloon in the vein and there was proper blood drainage, there were a lot of really positive results amongst multiple sclerosis patients. So basically that's the gist of what we were talking about just a moment ago. And sort of from there we got into the whole idea of testing of trials for new treatments, whether they be homeopathic or otherwise. And I think that it's important to do research on these things because if you don't, how can you know if there are other alternative ways of being treated for certain illnesses and such? So I think it's a good thing to test for these, to do research whether or not it works out in the end. So
that's setting it up for some epic discussion.
Whoops. You said they can put a balloon in your vein. Well, how is that gonna improve the blood flow?
Well, you see, if there's a blockage in the brain, they open the passageway with a balloon. It doesn't stay in there and block it. It's not like.
So it's like a balloon. It inflates.
They go in through the leg vein into whichever major vein is blocked, and they expand it with this balloon device.
You mean like a mesh?
I mean, I'm not a scientist, so I'm not going to pretend I can.
Put a mesh on the
That's what a stent is. Yeah. Basically, they open up the vein though. Like.
Sorry for interrupting. Her name is. What is his name?
His name is Dr. Zamboni.
Dr. Zamboni. Okay, there's a few.
When you say balloon, it's like it'll be like a physical.
Why are you asking me to describe exactly the medical tools that are used? I'm not a doctor. I've never been.
All right.
But it opens the vein is essentially what it does, and yes, there's proper drainage as a result.
So first, I would like to bring up 2 points. First point is that there is in fact a test that we can do to determine whether or not something is legit. It's really not up to interpretation, and it really can't be true for multiple people in a different way. It's either true or it's false. This test is called the blind test. There's the single blind, double blind, triple blind test. They're called randomized blind studies. It goes like this. You have a bunch of people who take your pill and a bunch of people who take a random pill which is inert, has no effect whatsoever. And you put all the results from all the people into one pile. I give the results off to another person. This other person has to split them up into 2 piles. And you have to measure how well he split the 2 piles from to what I predict my medicine would have produced. If, for example, the 2 piles are almost randomly split, I can conclude that it failed the double-blind test, which means that it is no better than placebo at the proven effect, which means it has no active value whatsoever. If a medicine fails the double-blind test, it is considered an alternative medicine. If it passes the double-blind test, it is considered actual medicine. And yes, there is an actual objective test. And the second thing I'd like to mention is just to point out what specifically homeopathic medicine is, and how it, in fact, violates the laws of physics. Its claims are that when you take a substance, and the less you have of it, the more potent it becomes. So then they dilute a substance in an exponential way by putting a drop into a liter of water, diluting it, then taking a drop of that, putting it into into a liter of water, and repeating it. And each time you become 1,000 times less dilute. And they will do this up to 60 or more times. And I mean, you'd have to resort to absurd analogies to illustrate this. You'd have to consume the contents of our solar system, our entire solar systems. If you could fill it up with water, you'd have to consume that thousands of times every second since the beginning of the universe in order to have expected to even hit one molecule of the original substance. Because that's how the exponential function works. After 60 exponents, 1,000 to the 60th power, you're entering beyond astronomical numbers. And to claim that this is somehow having an effect is not only contrary to the laws of physics, it has been demonstrated false thousands of times by anybody who has ever tried it. In fact, I personally volunteer to eat a whole case of homeopathic sleeping pills if you pay for it, and I bet I will not feel sleepy at all.
I'm not personally I'm not into a lot of these alternative things. I'm not saying that I personally think all of my woes can be cured by a herb in a pill form that, someone says is amazing. But at the same time, it's like a lot of drugs that are distributed on the market, have zero effect on people or really, don't really help people. So I'm saying, if someone thinks that something could potentially work that isn't mainstream, maybe homeopathy. Okay, for example, I did this story once about this thing called qigong, and it's basically a Chinese medicine, healing exercise. And some people claim, I had a tumor and I did qigong, and it's sort of like Tai Chi yoga sort of stuff. And people claim these amazing outcomes from it. And to me, it's hokey. To me, I'm like, yeah, okay, I have the flu, I'm going to do qigong, that's not really my thing. But if it works for somebody and who knows why it works, then is it such a bad thing to have around? You know what I mean?
That reminds me of a discussion I was having earlier about if it works, why not try it? This was brought to me by somebody I respect, and we debated about this for a long time. He said if someone's a dying cancer patient or something, and then they have a chronic pain, and they've tried the chemo treatment and all these other things, and so then at that point he says that doctors will be like, well, if you want to go ahead and try it, if it works, go ahead, do it. And pretty much promoting placebos in a way. However, there's been tests to show that people who have taken placebos, knowing that they're placebos, have also had healing effects. They've had results, and it's funny the way your brain works that way. But who's to say that? I mean, what do you think of the morality of a doctor prescribing these kind of things, thinking that it could heal you only because you tricked yourself into it?